All right, so I think what would be a fantastic idea now is to try and drop some predictions, drop the cold hard facts,
Still a bit.
drop what we know.
I mean, it's still a bit early. There's still going to be more transfers,
A little
but
bit early, but
it's only a few weeks.
as of now, with a couple of weeks to go, a few weeks to go, with what's happened so far, with the friendlies that we're seeing now, we're starting to see how these teams are beginning to play.
I've been missing football, like proper football.
I've been missing football. I've been missing football so much.
I mean, it did come home. To be fair, under 21s Euros. Just mention that quick.
It did, but
James Trafford, brilliant goalkeeper.
yep. So I thought it would be a fantastic idea at the moment for us to have a look at some transfers, and basically from that, decide who we think's going to be going down, getting Champions League, where we think everyone's going to be.
Yeah.
And I guess you could also speak about what you think they still need. If you think they're going to underperform, what are they going to need to get to where they want to be? So I guess start with.
Do you want to go first? Yeah, you can go first.
Well,
You
we'll
tell
say
me
who wants to go. Who think? Where do you think? I'm having a seizure. Who do you think will be last, bottom of the table?
Want me to tell you, or do you want to tell me?
You go first.
Well, I was tossing and turning between two newly promoted teams. You probably guess which two.
I think we're tossing and turning between the same ones.
But I went with Sheffield United to finish last.
So did I actually. So did I, and I don't think it's too
much of a rogue shout.
I don't think it is, because I think if you look at not just what they've done or lack thereof, but I think it's what they've lost. Ender Stevens, he's not been that important in the team, but you've lost him, lost Jack O'Connell. Billy Sharp was getting on, obviously, but it's a bit of experience in that team. And if you look at who they've brought in,
they've had
no one really that's that good. There's obviously it's heavily linked that Iliman Ndiaye is going to be leaving.
Yeah, he was going to go to Marseille. That deal did fall through, so his potential would stay. If they keep him, they might be able to.
It sounded obviously it was leaked through the Facebook Marketplace that his wife was trying to sell some furniture. We're moving house. They've recruited young. They've brought in 3 players: Benye, Traore, Anis Slimane, and Yasser Larouci.
Sometimes that works. Sometimes
I don't
it doesn't.
know much about them at all. I think 2. One's from the Danish league, from the Swedish league, and a loan from the French second division. Average age of that arrival is 21 years old, which is pretty good. I'd be quite happy with that, but I don't think they're doing enough based off the team they have already. Obviously lost some players who were on loan.
Yeah.
And I just don't think that team has enough experience. I don't think it's going to do enough.
I like Sheffield.
I think they're a fantastic
career
club.
modes. We've done career modes before in the past, Sheffield. I like them. I think they're a good team. I liked when they first came up a couple of years ago and how they nearly got Europe. They're quite close to it. But then I just feel they've got financial issues at the moment. They've got a transfer embargo going on. I think it's close to being somewhere resolved, but it's not done yet. So they've got a lot of transfer issues. They've got just loads of issues going on, and they just don't have a Premier League squad.
I think what summarises it for me is I was listening to Billy Sharp, obviously saying about how he'd left, and he explicitly said this team is not ready for the Premier League. It seemed like it was maybe a season or two too early. But I think from looking at the Championship from last year, whoever came up was going to struggle. It wasn't.
Apart from Burnley. I think Burnley were the only ones that I can look at of the teams that come up with.
Yeah,
they're going to do well.
They're going to do well. But I think from what you've said, from what I've said, I think have we both got Luton 19th?
No, I've got Luton. Yeah, Luton. I've got Luton 19th.
I think the key difference is I thought Luton's side was much weaker than Sheffield United, but they're recruiting well. Issa Kabore from Man City.
I've
on loan.
seen videos of he's quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing Nakamba back was good.
Nakamba is an important signing. I haven't heard much of Ogbene. Apparently he's quite good for Championship standard, but I've heard of Mads Anderson.
And
we obviously know Tahith Chong.
He was did well for Burnley.
They've recruited well from the Championship. The only question I have is it going to be good enough in the Premier League?
Obviously, they've still got until September to recruit, and
they'll need a keeper if they're not going to sign Ethan Horvath back from Nottingham Forest. Obviously, he was out there on loan. If they're not going to sign him back, I think they're going to need to sign a keeper. Very important. But
maybe Sikorsky from Brentford.
Bearing in mind Bayern Munich are after him, I'm not sure they're going to get him.
Buy him. Oh yeah, they're losing in summer. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But I think Luton will have some exciting games, but I just think compared to everybody
I think
else,
they'll be like Nottingham Forest at home. It's going to be hard to break them down because
they're not going to get much away.
It's compact, small, and usually
It's loud.
Maybe
very
like
loud.
Sheffield, they might get one away at Sheffield, or get one away probably at Spurs because that is Spurs. But I mean, I can't say anything. But the lower league teams always seem to get something over Spurs. So
Yeah.
I think Luton could. And obviously,
it'll be close, I think, but I think just not enough.
As with Watford members in my family, I want them to go down.
I'd more than happily see him go down.
I don't like Luton. I wanted Coventry to go up. I was upset when.
So 18th last team.
I'm going to let you say yours first.
I went Bournemouth.
Same. I went Bournemouth as well.
So our 3 to go down are all the same.
Sacking.
That's it for me. Honestly, there was no point sacking Gary O'Neill. No point.
Why.
I think that was nigh on suicidal.
Literally, it's just like, what was the point? He kept you up, and I saw Bournemouth fans saying, "Well, we could have pushed for Europe. We could have pushed for the top half."
You wouldn't.
You're not good enough.
You're not good enough.
Your squad isn't good enough to stay up. You stayed up
They've
because
got rid
of
of
him.
Jefferson Lerma, which I think is stupid.
Oh yeah, they have. Stupid.
I think that is really stupid.
Jack Stacey was good.
Jack Stacey wasn't great last
and they've
year.
lost them all on free as well.
Yeah, they've not got any money from it.
And they've spent 70. They've spent a lot, to be fair.
They've spent a lot, but if you look at who they've signed, Hamid
Traore
Traore
played for Bournemouth last season on loan, I think.
Yeah, they've signed him permanently from Sassuolo.
That's good.
That's
Justin Kluivert's good signing. He's good.
Favour will be all right. Kluivert will be good. I've not heard much from Kerkesh. No. But I think when you look at that, the players they're signing young players from teams that are pretty big, actually. AZ Alkmaar is they're pretty established in the Dutch league. Sassuolo, Roma, Lyon.
Yeah.
They're signing from credited players, but they're signing fringe players from credited
But their manager, they brought a manager, apparently he was quite good in whichever league. I think it was, I want to say Italy, but I can't remember.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, but I just never heard of him before. And the fact you sacked someone who's the reason you stayed up, unless there was reason behind it, because I know there's some people will say throwing out allegations that he'd done something and all that stuff. But if there was reason, then okay, fair enough. But if
on
you just
performance base, they shouldn't have got rid of him. He was.
No, I think
fantastic.
they'll struggle, and I think they'll just go down.
So just surviving 17th.
Who have you gone with?
I've gone Wolves.
I've gone Nottingham Forest.
Right. Okay.
You want to start with Wolves first? Or
I've gone with Wolves simply because I don't think they have a particularly good brand of football. And I think if you look at the amount of players who they've lost,
Ruben Neves
is enormous loss. Connor Cody to Leicester, Nathan Collins to Brentford. Yep. So they've lost 2 experienced centre backs.
Cunha's gone back from. No, I think Cunha's signed permanently. I'm pretty sure. I saw him in a game.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah,
yes, yeah. So they have signed Matthias Cunha, but for £50 million, that's insane. Matt Doherty could be all right. Is he the same player?
I know the only reason they brought him back because he was a legend. But I'd say a legend for him. He was good for them when they first a few years ago.
Absolutely.
It's crazy how much they've fallen off.
Their brand of football isn't amazing. They're not recruiting.
Have you heard of that Boubacar Tomorrow? But I don't know where from.
But they're not recruiting amazingly. I don't think. I think that's a massive waste of money. 50 mil for Matthias Cunha.
He's a good player. He's a good young player.
Good player, but not 50 million.
No.
And when you're splashing that amount of money on him or on Gonçalo Guedes.
And then send him out on loan.
Yeah. I don't think they recruit well. They've lost Joao Moutinho.
They've lost Diego Costa, which could have...
Adama Traore is gone. I think he's not an amazing player, but
he's not been signed up permanently.
No. I think they've let his contract run down.
Oh.
But they've lost 2 important centre-backs. They've lost their star midfielder. I just think it's terrible. And I don't think they're bringing in the players they need to. And I don't think their brand of football is particularly good. So I think they don't play that well. And they don't play well away from home either.
No.
They
play well at home.
They're pretty good at home at the Molineux, but they're not the same. And
with Forest, if you don't mind going up to Forest. This one, I was tossing between a few teams down here. Because there's a few teams I think could still go down, but I don't think will. Who are they brought in?
They're brought in Chris Wood on a permanent deal and Ola Aina.
They've lost.
Not sure.
Lodi's gone back. Navas has gone back. Lingard, Scott, I don't think I didn't do anything.
But I don't.
But
Lingard
losing
didn't do much.
Navas and Lodi are massive ones.
I mean, they're
Obviously,
two experienced Champions League experienced
yeah.
players. They may not have been particularly
I
incredible.
know they've got Alanga coming in. He's doing his medical.
Yes,
that'll be decent if he can find form, because I know there is a player in there. I've seen there is a player in there, but it's just about getting him that confidence. And Dean Henderson is close to going back there, whether it's a loan or permanent.
I'd heard that that was potentially going to be deals off, because United's stance on it, from what I understand, is that they've lost De Gea. Onana, obviously, we know is a good keeper, but I think they're wanting to have a bit of a stable backup in case there is, case Onana flops, in case there's a breakdown in communication. They want to have, because they know Dean Henderson is a good keeper, they want to have him on the books in the club as a fail-safe, basically. I think they're reluctant to let him go.
Apparently, they're going to sign some Italian goalkeeper, is what I've heard from Fabrizio Romano and all that.
Well, if that does happen, then I could see Dean Henderson.
But Dean Henderson has told United he doesn't want to play for them again because of how they treated him last time he came back after Sheffield United. So he's told them he doesn't want to play for them again. And he wants to go back to Forest. Forest want him back, but apparently the negotiations aren't making any advancements that Forest want, so it might just end up being a loan again. If they bring him back, maybe they'll finish high because he's a good keeper.
A fantastic goalkeeper. Very, very good goalkeeper.
But if they don't, I think they'll need to bring in another goalie. I know they want Jose Sarr apparently from Wolves.
If Wolves lose Jose Sarr, I could see him going down.
But I don't think that I think they'll stay up. They could finish. The three teams I've got here.
They've got so many players from last season that didn't really play much. I just think there's got to be a good 11 in there somewhere.
The three teams I've got here, I reckon any of them could finish between 17th and 15th. Any of them.
I think that, again, there is a group of teams there.
Yeah.
So, 16th?
16th, I've got Wolves.
You've got Wolves 16th, okay. I think, is it a similar reason to me?
Yes, but just purely because they just don't seem to be building on... They've got a great manager in Lopetegui, and they're not building.
Lopetegui's a good manager, but I don't like his brand of football. I don't think there's much there.
I don't think he's got the squad to play what he wants to play either.
I think for him to do well there, there's potential for them to do well, but they have to have a very good squad. And Wolves
Matthias Nunes is still good. He's good.
Nunes is good, but they've lost Moutinho and they've lost Neves, who were very important to the team. They don't obviously have Dendoncker anymore, who was good. He was their captain. They've just not. They've missed out on so many opportunities.
They've missed out on chances to grow. They've let too many players leave.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Who have you got 16th?
I've kept my expectations for newly promoted clubs quite low. I've gone Burnley.
Okay, yeah.
I've gone Burnley 16th, simply because even despite what happened with Fulham last year, with Brentford the year before, I just don't see that there's going to be a team who's going to break into the top 12, for example. But I think if any team is going to progress to that level, it'll be Burnley. But it's not going to be just yet. I like the basis of the team they have. It's a good young core of players. They're adding players like Nathan Redmond to it with experience in the Premier League. Jordan Bayer, I quite like. James Trafford's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, he'll be a good keeper for them.
And they haven't really
Nathan
lost.
Redmond's a random one.
He's going to be good for their for.
They haven't really lost anyone either. That's really. I mean, Bayers was.
I was just looking at, but that's the end of the loan that he was there. And now they've signed him on a permanent basis.
Oh, have they? Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that's not much of an issue, but I just think it'll be a testing year for them.
Burnley love signing players from us.
But I think they'll do very well, and I think they'll be safe. I just don't think they're going to be. There's some people saying 11th or 12th. Yeah. I don't see it happening.
15th. Who have you gone with?
Everton.
I've gone with Everton as well.
Great minds and all of that.
I think they will kick on a bit. I think
Dan Juma's going to be a good.
I don't
get
it
player.
After he literally turned them down last minute to go to Spurs. Feels a bit like he's a bit like, you know what, you want me again and no one else wants me because they do well at Spurs. So I'll go to you this time. It feels like they're a bit of a second.
He
rebound
didn't do much
at
Spurs, which is my question mark over it. Ashley Young, very versatile, getting on a bit now. But I think he'll just add some depth to the team.
They've lost Moises Keane.
No, but I think that's a good thing. He wasn't going to work for him, and they've got 30 million euros.
You still remember that game where they subbed him on and then subbed him off in the same game?
Yeah, exactly. They were never going to keep him.
Sims is gone. I know that.
Ellis,
I hated that
7
they brought him
million
back.
for Ellis Sims. I think
Sunderland. I felt bad for Sunderland after they brought him
Yeah.
back because he was doing well there, and they brought him back because they were panicked they were going to go down because they didn't have a striker. That's what we were talking about
and
last
they didn't
year.
even play him.
Yeah, that's what we talked about last year. They don't have a striker. They
They
don't.
still don't have a striker. They've sold 2 strikers. They
Dominic
need to bring
Calvert-Lewin.
someone in. I think
And
they'll
Juma
just.
could play striker. But
I think they've just got the basis to do well at staying up.
Sean Dyche is the manager to keep them up.
Sean Dyche is someone who's going to say right from the get-go, lads, don't set your ambitions high for this year. This is going to be a building year where we're going to need to grind out results from difficult games to stay up.
Next 2 years.
Like, they know they're not going to be challenging for top 10. We know they're not a club that can fight for Europe anymore. They're not that team who was the one behind the top 6.
Yeah.
That's not them anymore.
They're not Ancelotti Everton.
They need to spend a couple of years just trying to finish in the top 15. I think that'll be good for them.
Yeah.
Top 15, and with a few games to go, they're safe.
They need to stop putting themselves in stupid positions that they have the last 2 years where they rely on the last 2 games to keep themselves up.
That's
last
what I mean.
year, it was a goal from Decore that kept them up.
A massive positive for them would be that they just to have a few games in hand that they're not worrying about going down.
Yeah. I think the fact that Decore didn't score that goal, we'd be talking about Leicester right now and not Everton. It's just they can't keep doing that.
They can't.
You can't rely on your midfielder from who you signed from Watford a few years ago. He hasn't kicked on like people thought he was gonna, and to keep you up.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a good player. It's just,
100%.
They need a striker. We talked about this last year. They need a striker. If you're listening to this, Everton, you need a striker. I also want you to go down, but
that was extremely loud.
My apologies.
14th.
I've gone with Burnley. I've
14th.
predicted them a bit higher than you. I was debating between them and a bit higher up, but listening to your analysis, I was like, yeah. But the reason I think they've kicked up because I've seen Company. I watched them last year. Company's a good manager. They're a good team. They're planning on bringing in more players, and they've got a good young squad. If they bring back Teller, did they bring back Teller?
No, not yet.
If they bring him back, bring back some of the players, and also bring Premier League experience and proven players, then I think they'll kick on quite well and do quite well. If they don't, maybe I could swap them like in Everton or not Wolves, but in Everton. But I think they will do well. I predict them a bit higher than you. I have a bit more ambition for Vince Company. Maybe it might be a little bit biased because club legend.
Yep.
But yeah, he's a great manager, and I'd love to see him back at City one day. I'd love to. So after Guardiola leaves, I'd happily take him back because he's a good manager. But who have you gone with 14th?
I've gone with Nottingham Forest.
Oh, okay. Similar reasons to me is that they've lost
I
key
just
players.
think with the amount of players they've signed, and I do like Steve Cooper as a manager. I didn't at the start of last year when they were bottom. I thought giving him that long-term contract, I thought you're being suicidal. But they've waited. They've cleaned out. They've obviously got loads of players last year.
Yeah, they bought too many of it last year.
It was too many. But I think what's going to happen over the next couple of years is they're just cleaning out that deadwood from that, working out, they're filtering it down to
who they actually need.
8 or 9 signings that are going to be top quality.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, they're just going to get better and better, recruiting alongside that, finding out who genuinely works. Gibbs White, for example. Him, Brennan Johnson, even Awani, however you say it. I'm not good with names. But just players like that, who they're finding out of like the diamonds in the rough of all of that. And I think they'll just get better and better. I think 14th is looking at the other teams, that's achievable for them. They'd have to work hard to get them results.
I think they need more
Make
signings.
the City ground a fortress again.
Oh, God. Yeah.
You can do it.
I think they need more signings. You've predicted them a lot higher than I have. I put them just to survive. I feel, obviously I was like, they should start, but then I read into it. He's the reason they got up. They were literally rock bottom last in the Championship before he came in. About 6-7 games in. So he deserved time. If they went down, they go down with him. But I just didn't want to go down because if they went down, they would have been financially screwed. Because the amount of signings.
Fucked,
so it's brilliant for them they stayed up and they need to kick on.
Yeah.
So they need to bring in signings. Maybe I'll put them higher closer onto the season, but they need to, next few years, they need to kick on and stay up because they can't just keep spending money hoping just to survive.
Yep.
So that's why I predict them just low.
But 13th, I think this is going to be where there's a big void between teams. I think we saw it last year where you get to 12th, 13th, 14th potentially. Chelsea. And you go from having teams that were more than safe arguably they could be looking at 7th or 8th, just with a good run of games, and then you'd have like a 10-point gap, and then everybody would be in danger.
Yeah.
I think you might see something similar again. I think the team that's going to be the difference in this void, I'm not sure which side of it they're going to be. For their sake, I'm hoping the top side potentially challenging for top 10. I've gone West Ham.
Oh, okay. I've gone a bit different to you. I've gone with a London club. I've gone with Fulham.
Right. Okay.
Do you want to do West Ham or do we do Fulham first? I do have my reasons. Fulham's closer.
We'll go Fulham first.
Obviously, Fulham have signed no one.
Fulham have signed no one.
They're close to bringing in, who was it, Damari Gray?
Damari Gray may be signing.
Yeah.
Raul Jimenez is close to signing.
Close,
For me, they're both depth signs. They've not got Mana Solomon.
They're going to lose
They're going to lose Mitrovic. They may well lose Polinia. And I think Marco Silva will stay. But I think the Saudis...
He did say he will stay.
Throughout this, they're just going to toss more and more money at him. I think potentially there will be an eventual figure. If it's 60 million or whatever, he's just going to go, yeah, all right then.
He's
not going to earn that for them.
Yeah, he was at Watford. Everton offered him more money. He was doing well at Watford at the mid-table, and then Everton offered him more money. And he was like, never mind, I don't want to be at Watford anymore. So they slumped down the table, and Javi Garcia kept them up. And so, look, the thing is, he's bribed by money quite easily, as you've seen in the past. And Everton, he didn't even do that well at Everton. He's a good manager, and I think they will stay up comfortably. But losing Solomon and losing Mitrovic is a massive... Mitrovic has said he will never play for Fulham again.
Yep.
Which has probably burnt a lot of bridges with Fulham and their fans because they loved him.
Even if he doesn't leave now, fans are going to hate him.
Because you openly come out and say the club has pretty much kept you for years, you've helped them get back up, and you've just gone, nah, don't want to. That's like Tony saying, I don't want to play for Brentford ever again.
Yeah,
like, you've given him everything. You're the reason he's who he is now, and he would
have just been playing like Championship League One football for Peterborough United for years now.
And I think they will do well, and I think they will make more signings. But Jimenez isn't who he used to be. No. Like we were saying earlier, he's not the striker. I think, oh my god, he's going to get them so high up there. He's going to score like 20 plus goals.
No, he's not. I think he'll chip in with 5 or 6, but they need to find goals from somewhere else.
They need another striker. They need a
striker. They need a couple of attacking-minded players. They just need something.
I think they will. I don't think they'll be as close as they were to mid-table last season. I think they will get mid-table, obviously, but they won't be at that point where last season, because last season they were comfortably, so they just, April time, they were on the beach, they didn't care.
Yeah,
whereas
absolutely.
This time, I think they'll need to be a bit more on edge about what's happening. And who'd you go with? West Ham.
West Ham. Because if you look at the players they've lost, they haven't signed anybody as well. But if you look at the players they've lost Lanzini and Masuaku, who weren't really that important. But Declan Rice leaving might be good for them. You heard it here first.
I mean, I think I've seen West Ham fans agree with you.
Bear with me. Losing your club captain might be a good thing, because look at the figure they've received for him. You cannot tell me 115 million euros for West Ham, a team in the Europa League, is not going to be huge for them.
They have a good squad. They do. They have Paqueta.
I've never really been someone to say, English tax exists and everything. English tax exists.
I mean,
100%. Because if Declan Rice was a German midfielder playing for, let's say, for example, Union Berlin or Leverkusen, they would not get 50
million at most.
Because Declan Rice is a great footballer, but he's not 115 million. 115 million should be getting you world-class players. Now, I'm not saying Declan Rice is not a world-class player, because I think he's a good
Arsenal fans, don't worry, don't kill him.
But I think Declan Rice will be replaceable for West Ham, and I think the transfer fee they've gained for him is going to be more valuable to them than having Declan Rice.
They did have a £50 million bid rejected for Polinia, but I think Fulham will struggle to sell him because he's picked up an injury in pre-season. They don't know how long it's going to be, and no one's going to spend money on a 27-year-old who's risking being injured the whole season.
Well, I think that shows intent from West Ham. I think what they've done is they've not tried to bring in any players and bring more what-ifs into the club and disrupt the core group of players they have now. They've said, right, we've lost Declan Rice. That's us potentially done for sales. We're just going to sign players now. And I think that's going to be important. That's going to give you the momentum going into the year.
They need to kick on.
I don't think they're going to be incredible. No. I don't think they're going to win the Europa League. I think
they'll get That Conference League fee was a brilliant fee for them. That's still good, even if they don't win the
incredible. And I think they may find themselves struggling in the Premier League.
They just can't do what they did last year and put everything towards
That's
the
what I
Conference
mean.
League because that
They
risked
may
them
struggle
relegation.
slightly in the Premier League for a bit whilst they're in the Europa League.
They need
because
squad
it's
depth.
just balancing both of them. But what they'll need to do now is be smart with their money and use that 115 million euros.
This is their third year in a row.
Into 3 or 4 different players.
Yeah. This is their third year in a row in Europe now, if I'm not wrong.
It is,
yes. Yeah. So they should
got to
start.
Be acclimatized to it. I think David Moyes, he's got to be very, very smart with that money he's got now.
He's got to sign good players.
West Ham will be lower than 13th, but I think 13th is a good estimate of where they may be.
They sold Declan Rice. They just need that guy. They need to bring in a replacement for cheap Russian and also bring in more. Bring in maybe another striker because Antonio and Scamacca haven't really done
One of them hasn't kicked on. One of them's getting on a bit. You just
maybe bring in a winger.
Energy into that team, like a bit what Dimitri Payet did.
Yeah.
Just do that. I think they just need that style of player, a bit of energy.
Who have you gone with in 12th?
I've gone Fulham. I've gone Fulham in 12th. I think for a similar reason for you. They've lost players.
Mitrovic is a big loss.
Mitrovic will be a big loss. I still think they're going to sell Polinia. I think he will go. I just don't know when. But I think he will.
If he doesn't, maybe they. If he does, I think they'll lower them a bit. If he doesn't, I think they'll stay at the table.
If Polinia goes to West Ham, swap those two around for me. West Ham 12th, Fulham 13th. My problem with them is they know that they're going to be losing players. They may even be losing their manager because Marco Silva has a track record. When there's cash, he's off.
Yeah, Watford fans know about that one.
I think that they're just going to be losing players this year. Yeah. They need to
similar
bring
to what my idea,
and they're not. Yeah, that's my issue with them.
My 12th place, I've gone with a team from London. I've gone with Crystal Palace.
Okay.
Do you mind
Crystal
going?
Palace.
Yeah. Crystal Palace. So my reason behind this is I feel staying up. I'm confused on why they've given Hodgson another year. The guy wants to retire, just let him retire. There's other managers, but he's a good manager. He kept them up. He got them quite higher up. They've brought in Jefferson Lerma. They've lost Zaha, which massive loss.
Big loss.
But if they could keep hold of Elise, which they might do because of his injury, and keep hold of Eze, and bring in more players, and then I think they should be able to kick on and get a decent bit because they have a good core squad. They just need to bring in those players to replace Zaha because Zaha's been their man. He's the guy.
Roy Hodgson got them. They got him playing a tune at the end of last year.
Yeah,
I think they've kept him as a mentor for their assistant manager, who seemed to be in line to replace him. I think what they may have realised is he's not ready.
Yeah,
but I think Roy Hodgson for another year could be worse. Okay, you could be in a much worse position because he was in good form last year. He knows the squad. You're not going in with a brand new manager.
Yeah,
and if things turn south, he's the kind of man that you want, someone extremely experienced. Now,
to be fair, they did do well last season without Zaha. I think he got injured towards the back end of the season. They were playing the likes of Mateta or Elise.
Play Eze and Elise on the wing. I think they need... Jefferson Lerma's a brilliant signing.
They need to keep hold of Elise, right?
They need to keep hold of Elise, keep hold of Eze, and bring in a couple of those star players again.
Bring in some championship guy that no one's really... People have heard of, but they're not wow.
That sort of
I think Ismail Assar is a big loss for them not to bring in. I think he would have been good for Palace. I think the fact he's gone to Marseille now, they should have really pushed, because I know they wanted him, but they should have pushed on and got him because he would have been great for them, especially if they lost
100%. I've got Palace 11th as well, so there's not really much more I need to add.
Do you want me to give you my 11th then?
Yeah, go on, mate.
I've gone with, don't slap me, don't hit me, I've gone with Brentford.
Okay.
If you don't mind going just to Brentford, I'll explain. You've made some good signings. You've brought in the likes of Nathan Collins, Sharda permanently, which you tell me he's a good player.
Fantastic player. I think he'll kick on really well this year.
Flecken, and then you've brought in some youngsters as well. You've brought in some guy from...
Permanent basis from the B team.
What's the guy's name?
Yarmulke and Trevitt. I think they'll be very useful.
You've brought in another guy for...
Kim Ji-soo.
Yes, him.
He'll be in the B team at the start of the year, but I think later on towards the year, we'll start to see him pushed into the B team, probably on the bench.
And you have
the A team on the
bench.
bench.
You haven't really lost anyone that I think, oh my god, they're going to.
I think our biggest
apart from Ivan Toney. I know you haven't lost him properly, but I've just hear me out with it. It's just you'll still do well. I think you'll still do well. You're bringing a striker most probably because I don't think Sharda's that guy yet. He's good. He's young.
It'll be Visser, not Sharda.
Yeah, but I feel any of that. I don't feel you will bring in a striker, whether it's I don't know, maybe a Diego Costa for half a season, maybe just to have that guy just to bring in a few goals. You'll bring in someone, Tony will come back, you'll kick on, but I think you'll struggle a bit, and maybe you'll be lower than like 14th, 13th, you'll be alright, and then when Tony comes back, you'll kick on a bit, hopefully. Hopefully. So I don't think you'll do as well as last season. You won't be battling for Europe, I hate to break it to you. I think maybe the next few seasons, you keep going, you'll push on.
I don't want to be battling for Europe yet.
I think you did very well last season. Just to be in a battle for Europe, I know it was unlikely you were going to get Conference League, but mainly between Spurs and Villa. But you were at an outside up.
Fell away towards the end. I've got Brentford 10th, and I think our biggest loss will be Pontus Jansson. Now, it may seem a bit odd, especially looking from the outside. You know,
you're the Brentford fan, so I'll let you do
your fourth or fifth choice centre back. You know, you've got me, Pinnock, Aya, now Collins. So you're looking at a fifth choice centre back who's gone to Malmo on a free transfer. Oh, he's your biggest loss. I mean, that guy has turned around Brentford completely because just being a good leader, just being a fantastic leader in the dressing room when Pontus comes on to play, it's just, you can tell there is an aura there, a leadership that is just unlike anything else. And I just think having that leader, you're going to miss him. And I don't think it's going to impact us in the table too much. I think Ivan Toney will be the big miss, as you said, in the table in terms of results. But I think the way we play will have to shift.
You can't play.
I think Mads Bidstrup will also be a big miss. Obviously came through the academy from the B team.
He's only 22.
Only 22. It was incredible out in Norway when he was out on loan.
I'm surprised you didn't keep Doversog. There was a backup striker for Tony. Because now, if
he wanted to leave.
If Shardo or Visser gets injured, who do you got?
Lewis Parr.
Yeah, true. But he's like you said, he's a bit injury prone. So I mean, you've got the backup there, but I just feel like you need someone else.
I think Bidstrup's on this.
You need a striker.
Very useful for us. But I think just because we haven't lost, we've had a couple of losses, but in terms of an actual core 11, we haven't really lost much. I think we're looking at a couple of the signings. I think we're going to improve.
What you need to try, and I think Raya will be a bit of a... I know he's still there, but you need to cash in on Raya and spend that on a striker or spend that on places you need, because I know you want him for 40, he doesn't want to go, he wants to go for... Even if you sell him for 30, I know you're probably going to sell him but even if you sell him for 30, you can still get yourself a decent striker for that one. You missed out, I think, on that guy Perez that's gone to thing. You should have maybe gone for him, but I feel that you do well. I think Ryle he got the most saves last season. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, he was fantastic last year, but I mean, we're replacing him
with Flecken, who's a Europa League goalie, European.
Got him into Champions League. Was it Europa League in the end? It was Europe, which is fantastic for Freiburg. Obviously, he has a very good connection with Kevin Schade. Both have came from Freiburg, but I think the stats don't lie that he is going to be a fantastic goalkeeper. And I think he will be more than a replacement for Raya. And even if he isn't, Strakosha is a Champions League level goalkeeper who's just got unlucky, I think. Yeah. So I think, we've got a lot of options in the goalkeeper position. I don't think we're going to be very badly missing. Fifth to Europe.
Union Berlin. Yeah.
So 9th, who have you gone for?
Well, 10th, you mean? Oh, yeah, because I didn't
10th for you, because
my 10th is... Well, you've summarised them completely already, but I've gone West Ham. I feel they're going to kick on, they're going to make signings. If they don't cash in on Declan Rice, they're going lower. If they cash, which I reckon they've cashed it, sorry, not cash in on Declan Rice. I mean, spend that Rice money.
From his money,
yeah, and spend it wisely. Yeah. Bring in Polinia, he'd be a good bring. But just, they need to spend that money and they'll get 10th, I think they will. And you've summarised them completely, they just need to spend that Rice money.
The position will all depend on how they spend that cash.
All of these lot from 10th to 13th, 14th can all change for me, like depending on how they do in the window.
I don't think so. I think 12th all the way up to 7th is just entirely flexible.
Yeah.
From what I've picked, at least.
So who have you gone 9th?
9th. This is probably the most rogue of the rogue shouts I've made.
You've put Arsenal in 9th.
No. Close. Tottenham.
Tottenham. Funnily enough, so have I.
Oh, shit. Well, that was I thought you were going to say Chelsea. A rogue shout, but no.
I just feel like they're going to lose Kane.
I envisage them losing Harry Kane, and that is.
There's no better striker in the world that they can bring in than Harry Kane, other than over Harry Kane.
I think they're also not recruiting extremely well. 40 million euros for Pedro Porro.
James Maddison's a good signing.
Maddison will be a good signing. Vicario as a keeper, I don't know much about him, but I think he'll be alright.
I think Ryan would have been a better choice.
But I think
personally,
Kulusevski on a permanent is good. Manos Solomon on a free is very, very good.
Yeah, I just don't know how he fits in over Son.
I don't know how he fits in. It's a bit like Danjuma. I don't know where he's going to play.
Yeah.
If they lose Kane, they have to get in a top quality striker. But even so, I don't know enough about Postecoglou. But it seems like everything they've tried hasn't worked.
If
Antonio Conte
couldn't do it,
Mourinho couldn't do it. I just don't know. Drop your thoughts, but I just don't think that it's not that it's not going to work out. I think that's just their limit of where they are, especially if Heung-min Son doesn't find any form again.
The issue I have with Spurs is the fact that they're never consistent, and they don't back their manager. They give him they don't spend who he wants them to bring in, and they wonder why they get more. Like Conte had a whole rant after they drew 3-3 with Southampton. Yep. They just can't seem to win. They can beat. It's all good beating Man City 1-0 every season, but when you're losing to the likes of Bournemouth, you're losing to the likes of you're losing to a Fulham at home or something like that. Like they lost 3-2 to Bournemouth at home.
Yeah,
they drew to Southampton. You can't be
doing that. You can't be doing that and expecting to get into Europe. I mean, their issue is not in the players. It's not in the manager. You've got some of the best players in the world. They've got the best managers in the world. You can't tell me Mourinho and Conte serial winners everywhere.
They've won a trophy everywhere else but Spurs.
Yeah, Mourinho has won a trophy at every single club he's ever managed, bar Spurs, and he got them to a League Cup final.
They sacked him.
I
know it was because of the whole Super League thing, but still, you give him. He was against you, and then you bring in Ryan Mason, who could be a good goalie.
Good goalie.
Good manager the next few years. But
knowledge.
Ryan Mason against Pep Guardiola, he was never.
Their issue is in the management.
And like everyone said, it's the history of the Tottenham.
It is
as
the history of the Tottenham.
Said, it's the history of the Tottenham.
Management. It's the history of the Tottenham.
And their club, the club just.
I'm gonna have to pry you away from
bottle.
I'm gonna have to pry you away.
It's just bottle from the top to the bottom. I don't like Spurs. I hate Spurs because they always screw us over. But I'm not trying to say I'm not like hoping Spurs get relegated. They're a good club. Don't kill me, Spurs fans. I just don't feel like you're building anything. You're just building to constantly be a mid. Like in the nicest way, you're building to just be there.
You're building because it's been taken away. You're not going anywhere.
You're building and then not capitalising. You spent 50 to 60 million on a striker who scored one goal.
I have to drag you away. 8th place.
And he's still
8th place.
Okay. And he's still lost. They still lost to Liverpool after
place.
Spurs, just be prepared for a dodgy season.
Listen, read my lips. 8th place.
One more thing.
No.
If you sack Postecoglou for the season, I hope you get relegated. There we go.
Jesus, right.
All right.
8th place, please.
What do we think? All right, 8th place. I've gone with Brighton.
So have I. I think that's just. It's logical.
They could finish in Europe again. I'm not saying.
They've recruited fantastically.
They're better than Spurs.
They've recruited better than a lot of other teams.
Dahoud, Pedro, Milner, they're good signings.
Dahoud on a free is great. James Milner will offer something in the midfield as well. They've brought in quite a few players from their under-21 side. Reda Kadra is someone I'm very interested in seeing. Joao Pedro, obviously,
every time they bring in a player,
euros is a lot.
But he's a good player. Oscar Watford fan will tell you he's a good player.
But Verbruggen, would you say? Right pronunciation? I can't pronounce anything.
Dutch.
Yeah, 20-year-old Dutch keeper. Don't know if he starts yet. No. Not sure. But I think he's just, again, an average age of arrivals. Obviously, there is some under-21 players in here.
Yeah, like James Milner.
Yes, like James Milner. But of the 10 players they've brought in, whether it's internally or from other teams, average age 22.5.
I think Milner's a great signing because he offers them that leadership. He's that guy that can get them through tough moments. In Europe, they're in the Europa League.
100%.
They could. They won't win it. I don't think they'll win it.
McAllister's loss. We can agree on that. McAllister's loss. But if that's your only loss, yes, if they're going to lose Caicedo, but it doesn't take much for them to replace them.
Every time
we know what Brighton
lost Basuma, who'd they replace him with? Caicedo. Lost. They lost. Cucurella, who'd they replace him with? Stupinian, who arguably was better.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
They just always bring in good players.
They're going to find someone again. They're going to pull it out the bag with their scouts.
They're
going to bring 2 midfielders in, and we're going to instantly know.
I don't know how they do it. They just, I don't know.
There's something else.
See, Spurs, that's called good recruitment, Spurs.
Okay.
Right, enough of the Spurs takes.
Enough of Spurs. We've both gone Brighton 8th, but 7th place.
Who have
This
you
is
gone?
Conference League.
Yep.
This is the first of the European spots.
Who have you gone?
I've gone Newcastle.
I've gone Chelsea.
Ooh. Explain yourself.
Okay. So if we go up to Chelsea, I know they've brought in Nkunku. I know they've brought in Jackson, and they're good signings. Keeping Colwill will be good. But they've sold more players than I can count on one hand. They literally, they've just lost so many players, and I feel like, I know they overspent a lot last season, and to finish 12th, they need to kick on. And Pochettino is a good manager. Our Spurs fans, he's a good manager. They never should have sacked him, Spurs. But they just, I feel like they will kick on, but I don't think they'll kick on enough to get back into Champions League. They need a season where they gel the squad together and they get able to know. They were gelling their squad together from the summer and then bringing about 10 other more signings in January, bringing Mudryk, bringing Enzo Fernandez, and you sack Tuchel, who is a brilliant manager, and then bring in Potter for the future, and then sack Potter. At least let him finish the season and then give him another season to work with the squad. Pochettino's a good manager and he's good signing, but I feel like they've oversold.
It's management again. I've gone Newcastle simply.
Champions League football, I think that's why you've gone.
It's Champions League football. Because if Newcastle end up spending another 80 million on 3 different players and they bring in a lot of depth for their team, then prove me wrong. This is why we'll probably do it after all the signings have been done. And we've maybe had a game or two to see how all the teams are playing. But from this moment, I think Champions League football, especially, they're going to go for the Champions League football. That's the important bit for me, is they're not going to go half-assed for it. This is not going to be, we're in Champions League, but let's try and get Champions League again next year. They're going to properly try and go far in it. They won't.
They won't win it. I'm
not saying they're going to win it.
If they win it,
I think their goal will be to get out of the group stage. And I think if they're going to push really hard, especially at the start of the year, to do that, I think it's going to hurt them at the start of the year.
If they win the Champions League, I'll sell my Xbox. No, I will. If they win the Champions League, that's why I don't think they won't win the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean,
I regret that now.
I was going to make stupid bets, but
I'm going to regret that now.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Seventh and Europe next year, I think they'd still be happy with that. They're still in a building phase, and you can't expect to be in the top 4 every single year.
In the next 3 or 4 years, you'll be a constant top 4 team, or at least
100%. But
no one expected them to get Champions League last season. Everyone put them mid-table. I remember I put them 11th.
You gotta hold back your expectations with them.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, 6th place.
Newcastle.
I've not held my expectations back. I've gone Villa.
Oh. Well,
you haven't said Villa yet.
I've gone Newcastle. Yeah, we'll get to that one in a bit. I've gone Newcastle.
Similar reason to
you. They need. And Tonali's a good signing. As much as I don't think he wants to be there. Let's be real. He got forced out of the club he loves, but he's still a good signing. He's a good midfielder. But like you were saying earlier, they need another midfielder. They need someone more creative. They needed like a James Maddison. That is a massive miss.
Like I said earlier, it's being too one-dimensional. If you look at the top teams, they have a winger who is creative, for example. They have a winger who's going to be silky smooth on the ball.
We don't
have a winger who's quick. They're going to have a winger who scores goals. They're going to have players who can do different jobs.
Like
when
Arsenal.
They come up against different teams, they can play a different way.
Like Arsenal, they have Saka, Trossard, Martinelli, 3 good wingers.
Trossard, Martinelli, and Smith Rowe.
And Nelson.
And Reece Nelson, who is a great player. There's 5 wingers who do 5 different...
Man City don't have any wingers anymore.
Not necessarily 5 different things, but they can plan for many different eventualities depending on who they're playing. That's an incredible asset to have that I think people forget.
Yeah.
I think Newcastle are at risk of just buying the best players and forgetting that. I genuinely think that they could do worse than signing Neymar. Don't look at me like that.
He won't go to Newcastle.
He won't go to Newcastle.
In the next few years,
maybe. Type of player, a replacement for Saint-Maximin, who's going to be just a nightmare for defenders.
But Newcastle won't be the type of squad to buy one big key player. They want
that type of player.
They need a defender. They need to sort out that defence.
But I've gone Aston Villa.
They've got Botman, Pope, and then none of those other defenders really make me feel, oh, wow, brilliant defence. They need to bring in
I've gone Aston Villa at 6th because of their recruitment. Jesus. They've signed 3 players. Okay, Moussa Diaby. What a player. I'm not going to lie and say, I've watched him all of last year. He was fantastic.
Yeah,
he was
like
really
your
good
FIFA players.
in like running inside, and I don't know how he plays, but from what I understand, the way people are speaking about him, he's going to be a fantastic player. Pau Torres, I know a little bit more about.
He's a great
and I
defender.
think if you have him and Diego Carlos when he's fit, it may not be the same Diego Carlos, but he'll still be a good player.
Yeah, and Santi and Konza, what's his first name
and
is.
Konza.
And Tyron Mings as well.
And Tyron Mings. 4 good defenders.
Callum
and Yuri
Chambers.
Tielemans on a free.
Leicester fans ain't happy with that one.
Adding to that midfield, and they haven't lost much. Ashley Young and Nakamba.
Would you class him as a snake for going to Aston Villa even though he played for Leicester? Because they don't like each other at all.
No, I wouldn't class it. If he'd been playing for Wolves or Birmingham, yes. But no.
I know Leicester fans aren't happy, but you can't blame them. Would you rather playing you? They're in the Conference League.
They've got Conference League football.
They should win, though.
But I think they've got the team to be playing Europa League.
Juventus might not be in it. Apparently, I've heard things that Juventus might not be in it next season. I know. I think it's Osasuna have been banned from Europe. They're not allowed to play in it. Some financial read they've done something they're banned. If Juventus aren't in it next season, then I see them winning it. If they are, then I don't know.
So who's you go 6th in the Newcastle?
Newcastle. Yeah, like I said to you before.
So 5th place.
Don't worry, I haven't gone too stupid. I haven't gone Villa going to win the league. I've got them 5th. Same reason as you. Diaby and Pau Torres and Tielemans, 3 brilliant signings, 3 proven players.
They can add a little bit more to that and keep... Because you got to remember, okay, it's not just players they're bringing in, it's the players they had last year as well. Ollie Watkins will be... I think he's going to just be on fire this
Douglas
year.
Luiz.
Luiz. Even John McGinn. Very good midfielder. I think especially if they can get something out of Coutinho.
Yeah.
There is a player in there. We saw him when he signed on loan.
But I think
it may be, now that they're in Europe again, he's maybe more interested.
They need to get that Liverpool Coutinho out of him. That's what they need. He was good at Bayern when he went on loan to Bayern.
I think they'll be extremely dangerous if they can.
He's getting on, and a front 3 of Leon Bailey, Ollie Watkins, and Diaby. That's scary.
It is 100%.
Counter-attacking. That's scary. Imagine City pushing up the pitch. We lose the ball, and then we have to deal with 3 rapid players.
Getting a really good song out of them last year. Think what you can do with those players.
Who else have they got up front? They've got someone else. Keenan Davies is a decent striker. Cameron Archer's good.
Got rid of Danny Ings.
I thought he was still there.
No.
They didn't say they'd sold him on the phone.
No, because he went to West Ham.
Oh, yeah. I thought he went from West Ham. They brought in someone else. They have another striker, I'm pretty sure. I swear. I know they're trying to bring in, but they have got a good front three. They've got a good...
And it's the midfield as well, and it's the defence. I think if they can bring in maybe a bit of depth on the fullbacks, they're going to have an incredible side next year. I've gone Chelsea 5th.
Fair. Similar reason to me is that you think they'll push on, but not enough to get top 4.
They won't push on enough to get top 4, which is why I've put them 5th.
Yeah.
But you said they've sold so many players. I think that's a good thing. I think Chelsea have become master scam artists.
Most of them have gone to Saudi Arabia, a bit dodgy. But
yeah, exactly. They've got 250 million, wasn't it, out of the Saudi Arabians? Was it 250 in the end, or was it like 100?
Funny, the biggest scam there is 75 million for Kai Havertz.
250 overall. Okay. Yes, they've lost Kante. That's probably the only big loss they've got. Azpilicueta,
Mason Mount, he's decent.
Mason Mount, yes.
75 million for Kai Havertz is the biggest scam I've ever seen.
Kai Havertz is not a 75 million pound.
Mason Mount isn't a 65 million euro player.
So Kovacic will be a loss. But if they can sign a few midfielders in there who are genuinely good and aren't stupid wastes of your money, then they've replaced everyone who they're going to feel the effect of losing.
I think they'll come higher than where I put them 7th. I think they'll jump.
They get Caicedo, if they get a couple of creative midfielders in there, that's all they need. But I think Poch is going to get something out of them. They don't need to bring in a load of good players to score loads of goals.
And Cuckoo's that goals, but he's not.
And Nkunku,
he's not a striker. He's not an out. And Nicholas Jackson, I felt they'll rely on.
Nicholas Jackson will be a good.
And Cuckoo's not.
And Nkunku's just a replacement for Havertz.
Yeah, he's not an out-and-out striker. He's not that guy. I don't even know where Havertz fits in Arsenal. We'll get onto that later, but I don't know.
But I think Chelsea, they're still not going to be good enough. But I think they're going. But I think they've been fantastic.
How much have they made?
They made 250 million from all sales. Yep. So throughout all of this, despite spending 60 million,
you did spend Nkunku, $1 billion in 1 year.
35 on Nicholas Jackson. they've still made 150 million.
I mean, they did spend. We're forgetting they spent £1 billion. We're forgetting they spent £1 billion 1 year.
Yeah, but you're forgetting who their owner is.
Todd Bowley.
Yeah.
Liverpool fans were like, why is Armour?
Top four.
Oh, we both got the same top four. It's just the order. I'm just gonna say you've got it. So you've got both Manchester clubs, Liverpool and Arsenal somewhere in there. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Who have you gone for?
Fourth, Liverpool.
I've gone Man United.
I've gone Liverpool because I think I'm being generous putting them in the top four. I think the only reason they're in the top four is because nobody else is going to be in the top four. You have no midfield.
Yeah.
Midfield is kind of important, mate. Come on.
That was your issue last season. You've sold more midfielders than you've bought in 2 attacking midfielders. You've done. If Fabinho goes, they have Bajcetic.
The only reason Fabinho hasn't left is because of a dog.
Yeah. Henderson's pretty much gone.
The dog can be sorted so he can have a lot of money, okay? He's going to have a solution to a dog problem so he can go to Saudi Arabia. So you're losing Fabinho.
I know.
You're losing Henderson.
I know I've heard from Liverpool fans Fabinho
you're
wasn't
not re-signing
the best.
Artemelo. That's probably a good idea.
He's gone to
You're losing James Milner. You're losing Keita, okay? That's like 5 midfielders. Oxlade-Chamberlain as well. You have like 3 midfielders in your books, Liverpool.
Liverpool fans are telling me their midfield next season is going to be Trent, McAllister, and Szoboszlai. That's 3 attacking-minded midfielders.
Yeah, 3 attacking-minded midfielders.
And then right back.
If you have an injury to any of them, or you have an injury to right back and Trent has to go back to right back, who are you going to have?
Who even is their right back? Joe Gomez, he's not good enough to be right back. And then they've only got one back up the centre back. They need to bring more in. They need to bring in a right back and another midfielder. They don't spend money, their owners. So.
Yeah, exactly.
They're lucky they
spend money, and their owners don't spend money, and they have no midfield.
But I must say it was a good signings.
I'm saying that, and I'm putting them 4th. That's because the players who they have brought in, I think, will be good.
Chelsea could pit them for 4th, I think, but I don't think they will.
No.
I mean, I'll put them 7th, so I can't really say anything.
But when you lose Firmino, when you lose Milner, arguably when you lose Keita, I mean, he's a good
I know
player.
they're old again on Liverpool fans. You know, I've heard what you say. One of my best mates is a Liverpool fan, and he says Fabinho was your defensive midfielder is Bajcetic, who's an 18-year-old. He's good, but you've got one defensive midfielder.
He's got a lot to prove, and you're basing it off half a year.
You want to come higher than top 4. You want to battle for the league. Buy Latvia. That's what you need. As much as I don't want you to.
Buy Latvia, the entire country.
Romeo Lavia. That's what you need. You need a defensive midfielder. You need a backup, especially if Fabinho and both that guy. You need someone. Otherwise, you won't get.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying this, but I think Man United.
I'm being generous putting them 4th. That's just because the players who they've brought in are going to be good. But the Liverpool fans saying, "Oh, with the players we're buying, we're going to be back challenging for the title." No, you're not. You're not. Because I mean, what's the guarantee that Salah's going to score a stupid number of goals again this year? Yeah. He's going to score.
We forget this is Liverpool. If any team were to kick on,
he's going to score well, but he's not going to be challenging for the Golden Boot.
No. No one's challenging Haaland for the Golden Boot. If
then you have Jota. Then you have Diaz, who looks like he might be leaving anyway. You're having a mass exodus of players, and you're not bringing anyone in. Saying that you're going to get 4.
If Diaz leaves, they need to bring someone in. But I think he might. I think he'll stay. He rejected Saudi Arabia, so
you said Man United.
I just feel. They don't have a striker for a start. That they need. If they bring in a striker,
having a striker is better than having Wout Weghorst.
Yeah, true. But then at the same time, they need. It's a bit. So I don't get why they didn't. He's going to Dortmund, which is good for Dortmund. But we're not talking about them. But they bought Onana, good keeper, good with his feet. And then they brought in Mason Mount, but I don't see. Is he going to play West Sabitzer plays? But he's more of an attacking midfielder, so why would he play West Sabitzer plays? They've got a good squad. I know they want to bring in more, but they haven't got a squad to challenge for the league. The same league will be challenged by the same 2 teams as last season. As much as... I
just think they have... I mean, I put United 3rd, so I'll carry on from... I'm guessing...
Yeah, I put Liverpool 3rd.
Liverpool 3rd. So we've said a lot about Liverpool. I'll touch on United just slightly. I think they'll need to bring more in. But I think they're going to benefit from everybody else's misfortune. I think Villa and Newcastle are going to hold themselves back by being football teams that haven't necessarily had Europe for a long time. They've not built a squad preparing for...
Same with Brighton as well.
Preparing for Europe, for Brighton as well. You know, these are 3 teams that haven't prepared, haven't had years of preparation going, well, we're going to be in Europe, so let's have a squad list that's good enough for Europe. Chelsea aren't there yet.
Liverpool
Spurs
might go.
are Spurs. They're not going to be there yet. Shut up. Don't say anything. I can see you grinning. I think Liverpool and Man United are simply going to benefit from the fact that other teams aren't ready to challenge them.
I think United will comfortably get a top 4. I just don't know about Liverpool. I think United will just do what they always do.
We're talking like these teams are shocking, but I mean,
they're good teams.
They've got a good.
If anyone
United's
was to
best
push on,
asset, I think, is their defence. They've got a good core of defenders. Onana's going to be a good goalkeeper, and they've got a decent midfield. They're missing a striker.
If anyone was to push on, it'd be
they probably need to decide if they're going to commit to any of their wingers. Anthony and Sancho have been underwhelming. They're getting rid of Alanga. Just decide if any of them are going to be worth your time. Mm-hmm. If not, just look at someone else and don't spend stupid money on somebody who's going to be a waste of time.
That's what I want to talk about quickly. Greenwood, do you reckon he stays or goes out on loan? I think he goes out on loan. If they could keep him, he's a good. There's a striker, there's a player in there. He's a brilliant player, right? I didn't love him, but he was a great player. I've always been, he's a great player. And what he did was wrong. Obviously, we're not going to go into detail about what he did or what he potentially, and we're not allowed to speak about that. But
I think he'll go out on loan, but I don't think it's going to be out on loan to see if he's ready to be back in the first. I think they're just going to send him out on loan until his contract expires. I don't think he'll play for United again. I don't think they can afford
Ten Hag
to do
did
that.
tell him he wants him to play, but he has to issue an apology and has to explain everything and what happened and all that stuff. But I don't know if he'll be ready to do that yet. Because football's about second chances, and if Man United do this internal investigation and find nothing, the police couldn't find enough evidence to prove him guilty. So technically speaking, he's off. The charges are gone, so there's no reason he can't play.
A short side note with all of the with everything that's going on now, including Mendy and Greenwood in particular, with these cases where we're being told they're not guilty. There's a difference between charges being dropped, which is what's happened with Greenwood,
and not guilty, which happened with Mendy,
and being cleared not guilty by court, like Mendy was. There's a key difference that the investigation was dropped because of not necessarily a third party, but an agreement, which either means that one side has said, let's just drop this. It doesn't insinuate whether someone is guilty or not guilty. It simply means that this has ended. You can't really draw conclusions from it. Whereas if someone has been proven in the eyes of the law not guilty or innocent, whichever way you want to say, it means that as far as the law, who are trained professionals to assess cases, have said, as far as we can tell, there is either not enough evidence, but in Mendy's case, I believe it was, he has been cleared. From the evidence we have, it says he did not do this.
Yeah.
That is a clear and obvious difference. It doesn't mean, because you can never be 100% sure, there is only two people, well, however many people it involves, that know what really happened.
Unless anyone was there and saw the whole thing, which is not usually likely.
People who were there, have seen it firsthand, and were in a clear state of mind to understand completely what's happened. Only they know what really happened.
Well, I think
but in the eyes of the law, you have to take innocent until proven guilty.
Well, you probably, So the last thing I want to say on it,
by law, you are believed to be innocent.
The last thing we should say on it, because we can't say too much, we don't want to say too much, but
that's just a summary of law.
Mendy was innocent. Greenwood wasn't proven innocent. United fans, he wasn't proven not guilty. He just had the charges dropped. It's different. That's why Mendy's at a club, and that's why Greenwood's still suspended, because they're doing their own investigation. If Man United say he's fine, then maybe he'll come back. Maybe he'll go out on loan. You don't know, but he's not.
Until then, you have no idea.
Yeah.
But we'll move on.
Now, our top twos. It's either between City and Arsenal.
I think it's the same. I'm going to go out on a whim and say it's the same.
I want to hear. Do I want to hear your second or first? I want to hear. Yeah, go on. You give me yours first.
My second.
Yep.
And by extension first.
Yeah.
Second place, I've got Arsenal.
Okay.
And by extension, I've got Manchester City to be champions.
I've gone second place. Manchester City and Arsenal to win the league.
Really? I was extreme that. I have no regrets.
I think, I know. You're probably all thinking, I thought it'd be the other way around. You're the City fan. You should want. I do, and I think there is a good chance we will win the league.
You have Erling Haaland.
We also have no wingers, no fullbacks or anything. We
Play
have,
through the middle.
but it's just if we bring in Cavadio, bring in a winger, then yeah, we'll win the league. I just feel like we're losing too many players at the moment, and we're gonna have to figure it all out all over again. Which it took us last season. We were like 9-10 points behind Arsenal in like February. We just found it out, and then losing all these players, we have to find out. We could easily win the league. I'm not saying we can't.
At the moment, players who have left Manchester City: Ilkay Gundogan, big loss.
Yep.
Benjamin Mendy hasn't played in years. Bustos, not really a loss. I think he's just like
Esbrand's not a loss. Cabore's not a loss. But there's someone there that pretty much guaranteed, like that Carlos Borges. He's gone.
Carlos Borges.
Mahrez is all but gone.
Mahrez is all but gone.
Laporte wants out. Bernardo wants out. Walker wants out. We're losing too many players.
There's a lot of players who are linked to leave. Not many have been confirmed to have left yet.
And we have issues with Cancelo as well, whether we keep him or he goes. And the only player we've brought in is Kovacic. He was a brilliant player. I watched him in our first game. He's a brilliant. Under Pep, he will play well. We could easily win the league. I could change this around. We could win the league by like 10 points. We could. We could win the Champions League again, which I think we might do. But I can't see us winning the league yet. I just feel like we might get too complacent. We might get too like, we've got these players. We did it easy last year. We're doing, and I just feel. I don't know. If we bring in the right players, we've got 300 million signed from Champions League money, from winning the Champions League and the treble, and we're not spending it. We're refusing to spend 86 million on a defender when we have the money to do so, and I don't get why, because we've had no problem spending 100 million on Jack Grealish. Don't get me wrong, I love Jack Grealish. I love him. Brilliant player. But we had no problem. So why have we got a problem with spending on someone who's younger, someone who's got brilliant potential to be one of the best defenders in the world, was ranked second best defender on so many lists I've seen behind our own Ruben Diaz, and which we were refusing to buy him, or we're refusing to spend what they will, and if we don't, we're just going to lose into like a PSG or a Real Madrid. We need to invest on players, because if we don't buy players, we're not going to win the treble again. It's not going to happen. I don't know if we'll win the treble again. We might not win the treble again.
Jesus, we're on a roll there.
We just need to spend the money. I know we've got the whole FFP thing going on. That could take years. I get that. But the owners have promised us they're going to spend this summer, and they're not doing it. I know we've still got a while, but they need
too soon.
They need to do. We need to just get this done. If we don't buy the players we want to get, if we miss out on Gavardo, we miss out on Elise or something like that. If we don't buy a winger and don't buy a defender or a backup fullback, we're not winning the league.
Kovacic is a good player. Kovacic is a good player to bring in.
Yeah,
but you're going to bring other players in. At least say okay, right? You lose Mahrez, you've already got a replacement lined up. You lose Bernardo, you're going to bring in another replacement. Kovacic could arguably be a replacement for Gundogan. Okay?
Yeah, Kovacic.
You're going to bring in Vardio. It's going to happen. That's going to be a fullback who can also play a centre back. You're going to bring in a right back if Walker leaves.
Hopefully.
Especially if your owners have said, right, we're going to bring in a player. We're going to bring in players. We're going to spend money this year. Right? You've won the Champions League. You've won the Premier League. You're going to have money to spend, right? So you're going to be fine. Whether it's now, looking at the team now, you go, okay, yeah, maybe we haven't recruited that well. Let's be realistic. If you're making a prediction on who's going to win the Premier League, even now, I can tell you, guaranteed, your team's going to spend money. You're going to bring in players. You're going to bring in top quality players, even if they're not well known right now. You're going to bring players like you did with Alvarez. You're going to bring a player who many people don't know right now. They're going to be very good. Arsenal, yes, they brought in the players already now. I think this Arsenal team is overrated. Especially, and I know there's people saying, oh, this is as good as the Invincibles team. That's saying they're overrated, that 100%. But I'm even saying the people who claim this team can win the league. No, it's not happening. 100%, it's not happening.
I think they
would overpaid on Kai Havertz. Okay, you've overpaid on Declan Rice. Yes, they're two good players, right? The only good bit of business you've done is Timber. You brought in 3 good players, but only one for a good price, which means having spent 230 million euros already, you're not going to spend, Arsenal fans, your team's not going to spend an insane amount of money on anybody else this year. You might bring in a couple of good depth signings for 20 odd million, but until you start selling players, you've only sold one player for any important value of money, and that's Xhaka.
For 15 million.
You're not going to bring in Caicedo. Chelsea are going to buy Caicedo because you've bought Rice already. You're not going to get both of them. And Partey's not going to leave because you're not as willing to sell Partey anymore. So from that, I don't think Arsenal are going to have the team to win the Premier League. Especially now they've got Champions League football as well. Manchester City are acclimatised to having both of those things and doing well in both of them. Especially if they're going to bring in players now to add to that depth, because they're always being linked with different players. It's Elise right now, but they've been linked with so many. They're going to get them done. Arsenal, I don't think they're going to do much else.
This gives me real 2020 vibes. 2020 Liverpool win the league. Everyone knew that. We lost company. We lost key players. We didn't bring replacements because we thought it would be fine. When we were stuck with Laporte gets an injury, we're stuck with Rodri and Fernandinho. We finished 20 points behind Liverpool. And I'm worried that we're going to end up doing that again because we sometimes can get complacent. We fell to nearly 12 points behind Arsenal last season.
You can watch this back at the end of the season. Man City will have won the Premier League before the final day.
Probably, yeah. But I think Arsenal, I think with Arsenal, I feel like they've just missed out last season. They're going to be fired up to go for it again. And I feel like they're just going to... Never know. They could... I don't know. Either of them could win it. I've just backed Arsenal just because I'm a bit... I don't know. Everyone just doesn't seem... We just can't rely on Erling Haaland at the point, because when teams like Brentford figured out how to pocket Erling Haaland, he didn't score a single goal past Brentford. And if teams do that, we don't have Gundogan anymore to come up clutch anymore. And Kovacic, it might be sick for us, but I don't think he'll be like that. But we just need to we just need to make we need to make more signings. We may have won the treble, but we've lost a lot of players. A lot of players want to go, and Walker is a massive loss. That's all I'm going to say. It could finish either way. City will probably win the league, but I just get a weird feeling that Arsenal, it might just pip us.
Right.
Like, we might win the Champions League, but I just feel like Premier League will be a bit lackluster at times.
Right. Okay. Well, I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on who's going to finish where. I think
most of our predictions were quite similar.
The predictions were pretty similar. When we haven't had a team in the same position, it's because they're one up or one below.
Yeah.
I think we're basically...
Apart from Tottenham Hotspur, you might not even finish in the top 10. I'm hoping you don't.
What's with you and your vendetta today?
It's always Spurs. It's always Spurs that screws over. That's why I don't like Spurs. My friend who's a Spurs fan, you know who you are if you listen to this. I'm sorry. I just don't like your club. You don't like my club either, so I don't like yours.
But yeah, I think predictions-wise we're pretty similar. I think realistically, they're not. I don't think they're going to be too far apart at the end of the year either.
Our furthest difference is, I think, Forest, where you put up like 14th, I put up like 17th. Yeah. Or Chelsea.
Absolutely.
You put 5th, I put like...
But I do just want to touch.
Do we have enough time to touch? Do you reckon we have enough time to touch?
Yes, we'll touch base just quickly on the Formula One. There's the Hungarian Grand
Prix. Championship's already finished. Congratulations, Max Verstappen. Round of applause.
Yep. And that's all we've got time now.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next.
No, I mean, Max Verstappen won again.
As per usual.
I had some hope when Lewis stuck it on pole. I had some happiness. The happiness disappeared very quickly, but I had some happiness. But what I want to get your thoughts on just quickly. Daniel Ricciardo.
To
be fair, he had a pretty good race, all things considered.
The fact that he got clapped into the back of by Zhou Guanyu.
Got swatted into by Zhou Guanyu. I turned 1, fell back towards it 18th.
Yeah, the Alpines decided they want to.
In the AlphaTauri, probably the worst car on the grid. Outqualified Tsunoda. I think that's pretty positive. At the expense of Nick de Vries, though, is he the right step they should be making?
I don't know. I mean, he's only till the end of the season. I think the end of the season will come, they'll bring in someone else. Ricciardo won't stay there.
But I want you to answer this as a fan of Sergio Perez. Okay, has Ricciardo gone to AlphaTauri just so they can tell if he's a good replacement for Perez? Where will Sergio Perez be at the end of this season?
Horner's comments is Perez stays till 2024, and I'm going to bet the team.
They said they'd give De Vries until the summer. They said they weren't going to drop Gasly in 2019. They said Albon would get 2021. What happened? None of them were true.
Nah, but Perez is done.
You can't trust anything Red Bull says. It's a scam. Anything Red Bull says is a scam.
I want him to stay. If he does stay, he does. If he does, he does. But I don't think Ricciardo deserves to race for Red Bull. What's he done? What's he done in the past few years to warrant a seat at the best team?
Since losing his Red Bull seat? He's won one race at McLaren. He's got a couple of podiums.
For Renault.
And been generally underwhelming.
He doesn't deserve... Perez, arguably, I know he's been in the better car, but he was better. Perez was better. Obviously, you watched him more than I did in 2020, but Perez arguably was better at Racing Point. It was a better car, but then he was at Renault in 2020.
Yeah, the Racing Point was a better car because it was just last year's Merc.
Yeah, literally.
But I personally think Perez won't have a drive next season.
I think he'll get given the last season. I hope he gets given the last season. One thing I want to ask you though. What do you think's happened? There's been quite a few changes. How are McLaren suddenly so quick? Why do Mercedes, Ferrari what's going on with Ferrari and Aston Martin seem to have fallen off?
It's
Mercedes.
A genuine question. Who has the second fastest car?
And will Mercedes catch up with Red Bull or Mercedes just over to have to start focusing on it next year? You're the big F1. You're a bigger F1 fan than me. You've loved it for years, so I'll let you answer these.
Right. It's pretty obvious Red Bull is the fastest car on the grid. It'll be like that for the rest of the year. I don't agree that they're going to win every race from now to the end of the season. It's not happening. I'm sorry. Because they're not developing the car in the same way the other teams are.
They're already on next season.
I think McLaren will have reached somewhat of a limit already. They've got a good car for the rest of this year now. There'll be a couple of small developments. But I think they've already begun to focus on next year, building off this really good base they found out what does work with the regulations, found out what doesn't.
They finally found a good car.
Exactly, and Norris and Piastri are doing really well with it. I don't know if it is the second fastest car, because I think Merc are doing. They are developing it still, and I think that's the important piece. I don't think Mercedes will catch Red Bull because I think at some point they're going to have to accept this year
as a write-off.
Not a write-off, but they'll finish second, a distant second.
Yeah.
I think, again, we've got to turn our attention to next year. We've made good strides. The car's quick. We've got pole at Hungary, and we're saying we need to already focus on next year. But that just is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
And I think Red Bull have just blown this out of the water this year. They've done so well.
No. Verstappen has blown it out of the water this year.
Verstappen's blown them out of the water. Max Verstappen could be winning the Constructors' Championship on his own.
Yeah, I know. You know,
the only reason Sergio Perez is still racing for them is because they have to. He's a waste of money running that car. They don't need him.
Red Bull could win the Constructors by Monza, and Verstappen could win the Championship by Singapore. They were saying yesterday.
He'd have to go some.
That's 3 or 4 races time. That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, he's been absolutely insane. But
I mean, you say this. You say Perez has been underwhelming, but he's won 2 races this season. Both those races, Max was to finish second, so he has beat Max a few times.
And then didn't get into Q3
for
every 5 races in a row.
He still has more points than Ferrari combined. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's Ferrari.
I don't know. They just. I feel bad for Leclerc. Save my guy Leclerc. He's being screwed.
Leclerc needs saving. Actually, no. He doesn't need saving. So I think that probably concludes all we've got time for today. It's been an extremely long episode. It's probably broken down into 2 parts, actually.
Yeah.
That's probably best, but there's been a lot of stuff to talk about, actually. It's been a pretty eventful couple of weeks.
For a non-football season, there's been a lot to talk about. So.
It actually has, to be fair. But, yeah, that's all we got time for. Hope you've enjoyed. And we
should see you soon.
Much sooner than before.
Yeah, hopefully. If there's another, 6-month hiatus, then you can slapjack.
Blame me. Yeah, blame me. But, yeah, we hope you've enjoyed. Hope you've enjoyed listening to the podcast. I'll be back soon. Have a good rest of your day wherever you are. And we'll see you later.